Hi, Take the Leap listeners. Thanks for putting Ashlyn and I in your ears again today. Before we jump into this episode, we wanted to let you know that we've created a fun freebie just for you. If you've been thinking about launching your side gig or small business, we've got a free video training just for that called 9 Steps to Launch Your Business. You can sign up for that video now at www.taketheleap-today.com/webinar to get instant access. You'll also receive 2 free modules from our signature Take the Leap course. Thanks, and now back to the episode.
Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlyn
and Tori,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Take the Leap podcast. I'm really excited for our guest today, Michael Jonas. Michael is a Portland-based small business and nonprofit attorney, strategist, and advocate for equity and inclusion. He is the owner and attorney at Narwhal Law and Business Strategy, a community-focused firm offering legal services, strategic consulting, and organizational support to mission-driven businesses, nonprofits, and mutual aid groups. Michael is also the founder and former owner of Rational Unicorn Legal Services, a values-driven business law firm. In 2024, he ran for Congress in Oregon's 3rd District, centering his campaign on inclusive policy, economic justice, and grassroots solutions. A creative problem solver and dedicated connector, he believes that advocacy and policy must go hand in hand to create lasting, equitable change. Michael also brings extensive expertise and experience in legal guidance, organizational development, and public engagement to all of his work. Welcome to the podcast, Michael. It is so good to have you. And I just have to share really briefly, he gave a talk for the American Marketing Association on freelance businesses and all of the legal things you need to know. And that I know I still have the slides somewhere and I used them when I started my business. So really glad to have you, really glad to have this come full circle. And I will turn it over to you to share, what is your Take the Leap story? How did you first journey into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for doing such a great podcast. I think having a podcast like this for entrepreneurs to listen to, or budding entrepreneurs to listen to, is just so valuable. We get a lot of information, as you know, there's a lot of service providers, but until we actually get that sort of real, gritty, girl, you can do it, or I don't care what I don't care what your family said. You're going to open that business. We need to have those real conversations. So thank you for providing a forum for that. Oh gosh, my Take a Leap story. I have so many leaps that I've taken. I mean, the first one would probably be, if it's okay to talk about multiple leaps. The first one, of course, is applying to law school. I in high school did mock trial and debate and theater and key club. I kind of did all the clubs and all the things. My brother knew for sure he was going to be a lawyer. Came out of the womb. And I'm just kidding. But he was very young and was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I had no idea what I wanted to be, and I potentially still don't know, even though I am a lawyer. And so it took me a really long time to figure out that I wanted to go to law school. And part of that discovery was when I was in undergrad at UC Santa Barbara. Shout out to the fellow Gaucho Locos. I basically learned that not all lawyers were extremely corporate and formal, and not all lawyers were criminal lawyers. I learned about the social justice ties to lawyers, that lawyers were working for ACLU, lawyers were working on reproductive justice, lawyers were working on freedom of press issues, and lawyers were helping nonprofits start and form and grow. And so, based on me working with nonprofit organizations, community groups, and sort of understanding that I could be a lawyer, um, like Kamala says, a lawyer for the people. I wasn't a prosecutor or public defender, but I do feel like I'm doing public interest law through business law. So the first one was law school. The next big leap was that after law school, I lost my car in my apartment and um, was sort of shook because as a young child, we lost our house as well. And so I had done all these things for work and all these things for leadership and all these things to sort of prepare me for my career. And I was suddenly like, where am I and what leap do I take? So I moved from San Diego to DC. That didn't really work out. I was there during the worst snowstorm in DC in 60 years and worked in restaurants and couldn't find a social justice job. And then I moved back to San Diego and then did real estate and did a mediation company, um, which we could go into those longer. So I've had every kind of job in the book. I've done all kinds of business things. Um, the leap that really sort of culminated in me being here in Portland or in the Northwest, was I was in Southern California, kind of going in circles. I had moved home to LA with my parents. It was kind of one of those situations where like I'm 26, living in my parents' office. My dad is coming in his underwear, checking his emails, and at night, all night long, they're watching a show while talking. Um, and I was like, what am I doing, right? And I kept taking bar exams. Sometimes I wouldn't, sometimes I would, but I kept taking them. And then finally, when I got back to San Diego, I said, okay, I think we need another sort of moving adventure. So I, sight unseen, decided to move to Portland, Oregon. I don't know why. I don't know how. I remember doing a bunch of research on cities that I want to move to. So it was either moving to Portland, Seattle, Denver, or Austin. I narrowed it down to 4 places. Austin sounded great, but I didn't want to be in Texas because of open carry laws and it's hot. And then Denver's a bit too cold, so it was like Seattle, Portland, Seattle, Portland. Anyways, I literally just said I'm moving to Portland. So I put everything in a van and I drove up north, and I had to figure out my whole life up here. So there's all those leaps, and then running for Congress, starting law firms. Anyways, I could go on, and I know we don't have all the time in the world, but basically, I'm a big fan of taking leaps.
I love hearing this from you because I've known you now for so long, but never at this like personal level. We have so much aligned with like our stories because we moved down here to Vegas, like we shoved our shit in a U-Haul and like we only looked at the apartment that we moved into like on the internet. They kept asking us when we were going to come and tour it, and we're like, no, this is the date we want to move in.
That's it.
We're coming. All of our stuff is coming. All of our pets are coming. It was.
And it
was
looks
wild.
like it looks like it worked out. You have a lovely place. You weren't scammed.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Nope. Oh, now we're in a house. So yes, it has been really great down here. And then after we hop off, I have questions about San Diego because we're actually going on vacation there in like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But
San Diego.
that's
So I ended up moving to and from San Diego multiple times, and I ended up living there probably for about 9 years if you add up all the times.
Mhm.
And people thought, oh, well, you're moving to Portland, you must hate San Diego or you must hate LA. And it really wasn't that. It was that, I'm a Southern California boy, and I got a little tired of the showy nature, or like, what's your role? How much money do you have? And not that everybody in Southern California is like that. That's not true. But it became very hard for me, as I am a law school graduate who isn't yet a lawyer and I can't find work, and then someone's asking me where I got my clothes or how much things are worth. And so
Mhm.
I really just liked the idea of Portland. I like the idea of, just come here and be yourself and
Mhm.
be weird. And so yeah, it ended up working out. I have a job, I have a husband, I have two cute dogs.
They are cute. They are very cute. And he's cute too.
That's awesome. I know Portland. I grew up in the Tacoma, Seattle area, and after school, I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Where should I go? And I feel like I literally just like, all right, Portland, not too far. I can make it happen. And I feel like so many people have like that same story of, yeah, I didn't really spend a ton of time in Portland, but it seemed like a really good place. So just showed up. And yeah, I feel like that's just so many people's stories. And it is true. And especially the Portland of like 10 plus years ago, it was a little bit of a different place then than it is now. But it has that energy, the vibe of just being yourself. And I feel like there's a lot of cities that don't quite have that
Mhm.
same magic, I guess. It's really hard to explain to people unless you've
Yeah, yeah,
been here. Yeah.
and I wanted to be, I've had different times in my life where I didn't really feel like I had a community or multiple communities, but then I had times in my life where I did feel like I had a community, and I wanted a really strong friend network. I wanted to have neighbors who I don't just know when there's a fire truck outside or there's an earthquake. Like I actually know who they are. And so this sort of like, I don't know if we're a big city, but this sort of like small town feel, but we're also in a city,
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
extremely appealing to me. And also the idea of getting everywhere in 20 minutes, like except for Hillsboro. But the
Yeah.
idea of, in LA, for example,
Oh my gosh.
I was used to the drive from like LA to San Diego and back, and there's no predictability on how much it could take you. Bumper to bumper traffic. Sometimes there's 8-lane highways. Sometimes it's 10 o'clock at night. There's something at the Staples Center. It takes you an hour and a half to go like 5 miles, and you're like, what am I doing with my
Jeez.
life?
Yeah. It took me 6 hours once to get from a conference in LA back to Vegas because people were getting off on the Palmdale exit. Like people were all the way in the left lane, but they were getting off in this exit like on I-15 going towards it. I'm like, what? You guys blocked all this way to going
Yeah,
there? Yeah, it was wild. Totally unexpected at like 9:30 in the evening. I was
and
like, where are you all going?
it's wild. And my husband's actually from Lebanon, not the country, the Lebanon, the city near Albany, in Oregon, and he's like a multi-generational Oregonian, whereas I'm one of those Californians who moved north. And so, we've kind of like, not for real, like argue, but it's like, oh, you moved from California to take our land, and I'm like, I'm not from Orange County. I'm not an investment firm buying up tons of property. Also, I already had a beard. I already love music. I was already a hipster. But yeah,
Love
I think that the other thing is that this business community here, I think we sometimes take it for granted. We have an extremely supportive ecosystem, and I
That's
didn't
true.
get involved right away because I had to pass a bar exam and form a business and all that. But I have had nothing but support and mentorships, and um, people really want to help here. They really do care. Now, granted,
Mhm.
there's things I'm critical of. There's duplication of services, and there's people who maybe are a little too surface level. I want to like break things apart and be more systematic. But the heart of the people here and the willingness to combine business and community, and for them to sort of coexist, I think is a really strong connection
Mhm.
that folks don't have in other places in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, I feel that way about the Portland community. And I think it's how a lot of us can basically say that we were able to go out on our own and do our own thing because we had such a community here that was so helpful and so full of mentorship and just like you said, everybody's hearts, they want to help. And a lot of the businesses here are mission driven or community focused, which is just 1,000% better.
Yeah,
Makes
yeah,
business so much better. So,
100%.
well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about like your journey from um, starting your first firm and then your second. Like, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, y'all are super nice to listen to me talk so much.
We love this. That's why we do it.
So, um, yeah, so what happened is I might have alluded to this. I actually had to take 9 bar exams to become a lawyer, um, which is absolutely insane. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. So I failed 5 California bar exams, and then I moved to Portland, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll take the first one in Oregon, and I'll pass the Oregon bar. It took me 4. It took me 4 in Oregon. So I took 5 California bar exams, 4 in Oregon, a total of 9. So my husband, we were dating, and he had to put up with me taking 4 bar exams. So in 2017, now mind you, I graduated law school in 2009. So I didn't become a lawyer until 2017. And so in that interim, I mean, my life was just like all over the place. I did jobs and businesses, and I moved, and I felt very lost, and not in a good way, not in a fun way. So 2017 comes around, and I'm working at BPA, Bonneville Power Administration, a contract job. Really fucking boring job. Excuse my language. I love BPA. The people there in my sort of team were very nice, but the job itself was really boring because it had to deal with data input and real estate records and checking to see if lines of data matched and then scanning some shit and then finding another file over here. It was just like all the things that you would be, an hour or two of that, you're just like, what, like, are we, like, why are we doing this? Is there some sort of, but, I did a good job at that. I really cared about it. And I was just happy to be employed, to be honest, and have stable employment. And I really love BPA, and I love the people, and the cafeteria is great. Um, love, love,
do you watch Severance? By the way, I just imagine like how they had to do their data refinement.
yeah,
That literally just sounds like the
yeah,
job
yeah.
you
I,
described.
I love Severance, and luckily at that time at BPA, I had an innie and an outie, and they were very separate. So I basically had only been there for maybe a couple months, I forget, and I got bar exam results of my ninth bar exam. I found out during work that I had passed, and in the moment, I was like, "No, it's probably like Michael Jones, not Jonas. They misspelled my name. Maybe it's a list of people who didn't pass." All these sort of things. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I think I passed." And I just like started bawling. And then there's like this outdoor, I wouldn't call it a patio, I don't know, an outdoor area. I like just went out there and started bawling, like ugly, messy crying, like just like ah, like making sounds like that, like oh my god, oh my god, like. And then I called my husband and told him, and so basically, a part of me at that point, I wanted to just be like, fuck you all, I'm done. Have a good day. I'm a lawyer now. But the reality was like, I didn't have another job. I wasn't yet sworn in. Um, and because of my past where I had taken some business risk with opening a mediation company and doing real estate, which some of the time I actually admit to sleeping in my office or sleeping in my car, like I sort of knew, I don't want that life. And so the idea was I'm going to stay at this job, at this BPA job, until I can find something else or build something out. And so the ideas were there were three ideas. There was get a random legal job that you can get, working on insurance claims, which sorry for the people that do that. That sounds awful. But they enjoy it. Just not me. There's also some like legal Zoom contract jobs and things like that. Or I could have worked at a corporate law firm that was very structured. The problem with that is I didn't have, all A's, and I also know myself. I can't every 15 minutes tell you what I'm doing and bill in that way and be told more billable hours? And what if I want to help a client more and you tell me move on? We have other clients. So the third thing was like, you could start your own law firm. And I just kept coming back to that. Like, part of it was I didn't go through so many problems and so much building of my life and so much reflectiveness to then go to a job where I couldn't be myself, or I would be making someone else money, or I wouldn't see any sort of growth. And I know myself. Like in law school, I was the president of public interest law. I did political reporting and policy research. I did a disability rights clerkship. Like I'm a public interest community kind of person. So the worry was is I would go and work somewhere where not only would I not be able to be myself, I wouldn't be aligned morally or ethically, and I would be making someone else wealthy, and I wouldn't feel like I was building anything or growing from the experience. And so with all of those things, I sort of said, okay, you have to open your own law firm. You know, I decided that. I told my husband, I told my father-in-law, and actually my father-in-law and mother-in-law, Kathy and Dave were amazing. My husband Andy's parents, amazingly supportive always. They're Andy's family is like the America you wish still existed. Like they literally in high school, his parents would like take people that were being kicked out of their home in. They literally give people their shirt off their back. They're just like those types of people, right? So, but Dave was like, look, Michael, I don't think you should open your own law firm. And I was like, come on, Dave, like, what's going on? But the reason why he did that was because he said that, why don't you be a lawyer at another firm and then open your own law firm? And I got that. It took me a moment, but I got that. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can see where you would say that, but this is not my only business. I've had other business experiences. I have a very good sense of who I am. And I know that if I'm a lawyer in all these other circumstances, it's not going to work out. And why not open my own law firm?
Yeah.
Right? And so I did. And so that was kind of like a leap or like a funny thing. And then another leap was I told them that I'm going to call the law firm Rational Unicorn. And that was like, are you fucking crazy? And so long story short, fast forward, I had Rational Unicorn for 7.5 years. I created a community business law firm that wasn't just about legal services. It was about building community. It was about seeing people as they are and giving them equity and access, and seeing business formation as a form of economic justice. So if you and I are talking with each other and you tell me what you want to do, or you tell me what kind of job you want to have, or what kind of business you want to create, I'm going to not only help you get to where you need to be in terms of you being yourself, I potentially could get you out of a bad job. I could help you start to create generational wealth for your family. I can and it's not all me. It's them. It's other service providers. It's things like that. But it's more of I wanted to be part of that world. That sounds like Ariel, Little Mermaid, but I wanted to be part of helping people fulfill their dreams and work on things that matter. And so yeah, I built out Rational Unicorn. At one point, we had 15 people. I last year decided to run for Congress. I've been political all my life, and I think people now say, "Oh, well, I'm not political," but I really feel that politics is about what is possible, and there's possibilities that are real that we're just not actually doing. And so, being a creative problem solver and being collaborative, I thought, I'm gonna do this. Little did I know that I wouldn't have been taken seriously, and I was sort of lumped into the not viable, not serious fringe category, which is unfortunate because there's always room for more. The three people who were like the top three, they were coming off of a political role. I was coming off of working 60 to 70 hours a week during the pandemic. helping organizations of all types. And so I thought that my experience mattered. I also was coming off of winning small business champion of the year for the state and 40 under 40 Portland Business Journal. And I have a law degree and I have an MBA and I built a successful business. And so I didn't necessarily think, oh, you'll win. I thought it would be taken more seriously. And so the risk or the leap that I took there was I decided to sell Rational Unicorn. And then I had to be okay with selling it either way. Why? Because I'm not independently wealthy. And when you run for Congress, it costs money. And if you're running for Congress, you can't necessarily work full time. So the arrangement that I made was that I would continue working, but I would be able to work less and have a managerial role. The owner would contribute to the management of the firm.
This is great because I do think that gosh, the political system is so hard too because oftentimes I find this in a lot of different places. You were scary to people because you were the disruptor. You were the different. You know what I mean? You were the thing that was going to be different, and sometimes that works, and then sometimes it doesn't. Like I
Yeah,
think I was chatting with somebody the other day. It's just like the unknown is very scary to people, and they often choose like, well, I think I know what I'm going to get in that, zone as well. But yeah, no, and it's
yeah,
just, yeah.
and I think that there's a variety of factors here, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's the viability component at the beginning where
Mm-hmm.
power structures have outdated viability standards. So whether that's media or a city club or university club or whoever it may be, a community organization, a lot of their viability standards, they want you to have prior political experience, or they want your endorsements from electeds, and they want a certain amount of elected endorsements, and they want you to raise a
Right.
certain amount of money. Now the problem with that is that I wasn't coming off of a political role, so I don't know people from PACs, and I don't, I can't take my endorsement sheet to my coworkers and say, "Hey, we're all electeds. Can you all endorse me? You know me."
Right.
What I had,
Yeah.
what I had was endorsements from leaders of all kinds of industries, and not and personally because they can't always endorse as a nonprofit organizationally. But I
Mm-hmm.
had the endorsements of the executive director of Music Portland, the executive director of the Black Chamber, the executive director of Pride Northwest and Equi Institute. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and if you look at my campaign, not only did I have a drag brunch kickoff, but I was one of the only people to talk about food ecosystems. I talked about cannabis and psilocybin. I could bridge music and art with policy. And so there's that piece. There's the viability piece, right? So that's the beginning. And then it's sort of Pygmalion effect or self-fulfilling because if you don't give me a stage or you don't give me money, how will I ever get a stage or money? So it's sort of this
Mm-hmm.
cart and horse, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
that. There's also what we have a very low voter turnout. So the primary that I
Yeah.
was in, Maxine won a majority of 15% of registered voters. So only 15% of registered voters voted in the primary. So we have that.
Okay.
Then, sorry, I keep adding things, but then
No,
we have
no, no.
then
Wow,
then
it's
then
interesting.
we then we have the forums that I was part of or invited to, and thank you for those who invited me. I really appreciate it. The forums that people invited me to speak, a lot of them are what I call surface level progressivism. And so all of us on stage, we all believe in the same things. We all want universal health care. We all want affordable housing. And the answers were very similar, right? We would just be basically all be saying the same answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the issue is, why not have candidates go into a room and work on a problem to solve, and then come back and present that outward to the crowd to show how you problem solve? Why not
That's a good
have
idea.
why not have an actual debate? Sushila Jayapal, who's in the race, she's an attorney, and I was doing pandemic work while she was doing Multnomah County commissioner work. But like, we're both attorneys. Like, the two of us could have been put into a debate, and we could have debated some issues in a deeper policy sort of way. That didn't happen. And so you have these sort of forums where you can't break through because the questions are all related to things that we all want. And we're also not asking folks not just about popularity, but how would you run your office? How would you creatively help constituents in ways that you haven't before, whether that's in Portland or in DC? How would you hire creatively? How will you survive talking to Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House? How will you survive talking to MAGA Republicans? When you're asked to go on Meet the Press, will you do good on Meet the Press? Or how will you help inspire a younger generation who has been told that they can't find a job or own a house or afford college to want to be part of an economy? And so there's these sort of bigger, larger questions. So there's one more component of this, and then I'll stop talking about this. But the final component is the dark money component. So even if I had done a great job, I think I did a good job. I tried my best. But even if I had, I say, done a good job in the sense of, if I had broken through and people would have given me a chance in that way, and they said, hey, there's 4 serious candidates, not 3. There's the issue of dark money in politics and the Citizens United case. And I think people think that Maxine took the money. The candidate doesn't take the money. They can denounce it. But when private independent expenditures spend money, the candidate doesn't control the money. The money just gets spent. But you probably saw there's like hundreds of hit pieces on Sushila towards the end of the election about her, like, she didn't care about houseless. She didn't care about dogs and cats. And, whether or not any of those have validity, which they probably don't, or they're twisted stories. The issue is that if an outside group, and most of this was APAC money, if an outside group in a safe, progressive district, a blue district, can spend $6.3 or $6.4 million on advertisements, both TV, radio, and printed advertisements that kept coming in the mail, even if the election had gone a certain way, we get towards the end of the election, and then this private funder comes in and just infiltrates. And so we see this even in small town city council elections in America, where Pfizer or the fossil fuel lobby, whatever, they want one city council member to be elected because that city council member wants to give them access to materials to make pharmaceuticals, or wants to give them more access to areas for drilling fossil fuels. And so those companies can end up paying more than any of the money that's raised, and can flood the media and flood the market. And so the point of this is that even if all the other things happened, towards the end of this, 6.3 or $6.4 million of dark money was spent on the race, and that sort of elevated Maxine as well.
Yeah. I mean, there is just so much. I mean, we get so much. Like, I have a PO box here that I use for my business. Most of the stuff that was shoved in there was like all election related stuff. So I'm like getting it in my business PO box, as well as like my home, PO box and things like that. Like, yeah, and it doesn't necessarily, I think a lot of people don't really read between the lines that it doesn't necessarily need to be the candidate themselves spending on it. Money's money. Not all money's good money.
Yeah.
This is so insightful, by the way.
I know.
Who has long thought about running for anything, but I do think about that. I was like, do I have a thick skin enough to deal with the bullshit, looking what I look like, and and knowing what my history is. So
I mean,
it's really brave of you to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you both are great, and you could run for politics. And I want to see more women. I want to see more people of color. But the issue with this viability thing is, my whole life, and part of my purpose is getting in the system or getting into the structure and then figuring out how can we make this different, right? And I bring
Yeah.
people along, I lift people up, I use my privilege to invite others to the table. And so the issue here is, yes, I didn't win, but it's really, there's something bigger than it being about me. If I'm not deemed viable and I have a law degree and an MBA and I built a law firm, how would a teacher of the year decide to run?
Yeah.
How would a single black mother decide to run? Because even if they did, they would completely get shut out by all of these things. And so, what we should be focusing on is not having power structures narrow our representative democracy, because it takes away from the essence of democracy, because
Yeah.
the power structures are then deciding who gets elevated or who we narrow down to. And that's really disheartening for me. I mean, sometimes we end up with the right people, right? Like, love Jasmine Crockett, love Maxwell Frost, love AOC, but there are a lot of times where the person that we're electing, and by the way, I really do like Maxine. She's a very sweet lady, and I think she's doing a good job. So I'm not saying like, we ended up with someone awful. Like, I do like Maxine. The point is there's times where we end up with someone where the question is, if this is representative democracy, did the exercise of representation happen in these processes? And in all of those areas that I talked to you about, they're all additional items that cause representative democracy not to work. And the problem with that is that the people who we want to run, who are the best, are the people in community and the people who know advocacy. And advocacy should tie directly to policymaking and to budgeting and to resourcing. And so when we don't have that line through or that straight through from advocacy to politician, we end up with people who are either political bureaucrats or had tons of money themselves to run, or were seen by a conglomerate corporation and said, like, that's our person.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just completely inaccessible to the people we actually need to be there.
Yeah, and I sit in a weird place. I'm a business attorney, and I guess I'd say I'm an Elizabeth Warren Democrat. Like, I think we should have corporate America. But I think the difference is that corporate America should not make our decisions, and we should not enable corporate America. And then furthermore, we keep tying corporate greed to moral imperatives. So we can't have plastic bags that decompose because plastic bags are made with petroleum, and the oil company got the person who's voting on the measure to be there. Or we can't have healthcare reform because Kaiser and Pfizer and all these other organizations, if you help booster me up in my campaign, then when I have a bill related to health, I'm going to vote in a way that benefits you. So we say that we don't do favors in politics, or we say that people still make their votes and they do it based on representation. But really, I don't think that's the case. And I think that until we untether, which Bernie Sanders talks about this, like, all kinds of people talk about this. Like, I'm tired of talking about it. Like, let's just do it. Like, we need to have corporations take responsibility for their actions. So, for example, paying infrastructure taxes or paying money to clean up plastics if they're polluting. We also have to untether corporate greed from things that are basic human dignities or things that are moral imperatives. Like, what you're telling me that this person can't stay in the hospital longer. You're saying that this person has run out of their premiums for healthcare. Like, we're allowing these big, and I'm not saying like kill a healthcare CEO like Luigi, who everyone.
Right. That was very extreme.
Yeah,
That was
like
an extreme response.
everyone's like thirsting over him. When they're not thirsting over Robert Irwin, they're thirsting over Luigi. But the reality is like, what does that tell you? Like, wake up. That
Mhm.
Yeah.
if healthcare companies are murdering, they are still murdering people. It's a different kind of murder, but there's still proximate cause there from a lawyer or legal
Mhm.
perspective. When you cut people off from the care that they need, or you don't provide the surgeries that they need, or you make doctors brokers of healthcare. There are doctors in America who they take a Hippocratic oath, and then someone gets into a car accident, and the doctor says, "Hey, I think you need 3 surgeries, but your insurance company says you only get one. So let's talk about which one of the 3 that you get." Like, why is a doctor a broker for the health or survival of a patient? So again, I can't fix all the problems, and we've been trying to do this, but hopefully, I will run again. I'm not saying tomorrow. I'm not saying when. I don't. I'm not jumping into a race. Um, but I also really like the community work that I'm doing now, and I think it's really focused and really important. But I'm going to be frank. Like, we have to stop with this sort of enabling, and and we need to sort of rebuild America of like, let's stop making promises we can't keep. Let's treat
Mhm.
the environment as scientifically, motherly, godly as we can. Let's lift people up. And so this new kind of politics, like, I don't care who you are, what you believe in, but this new kind of politics that stands behind Christian fundamentalism or white nationalism, that doesn't recognize that America is a country based on immigrants, or doesn't recognize
Mhm.
that we're stronger with diversity, both in business and with friendships.
Yes.
Um, they're completely off, and it's going to backfire on them. We're already seeing that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm. Absolutely. What a journey. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us. Well, just kind of knowing what you know now, like, what piece of advice would you give yourself when you first started out in your career, when throughout any of this? Like, what's something that you would tell the younger version of yourself now that you've been
Yeah.
through all these different paths?
Oh, so much. And I'm also a really big fan. I'll say this to folks. It's really hard to get a therapist, but if you can, get a therapist.
Yeah.
I've been doing weekly therapy
Yes.
again for the last couple weeks, and um, mental health is incredibly important. And I don't think that as a child or younger, I sort of took my mental health for granted. And I think
Yeah.
that, you know, all these mental health folks, coaches, mentors, all these things are really important. I think what I would tell myself, first of all, is that you're not broken. You know, I was often feeling like I'm in 100 different directions, and I like too many things, and I'm not good at anything. If only I could specialize. If only I could be good at that one thing. But the reality is that I am good at doing all those things together or concurrently, and that's actually a skill set. Nobody told me that when I was young. Like, this is a skill set for you to be all over the place. I mean, I don't know how you'd say that to a child, but I think
Yeah.
you should let a child, be multifaceted. The other part is failure. You know, my parents had a lot of heartache and a lot of failure. I alluded earlier to, when we were 12, we lost our house, and there were times when we didn't have a car. There's just a lot of stuff, right? And my dad passed away about 4 years ago, and before he died, he didn't talk to me for about 8 years, which that's a potentially a whole other podcast. But I think my dad would be really proud of me because I like figured out who I am, and then I made my own business. And but my dad didn't really understand the concept of failing forward, or thinking about
Mhm.
failing in this way of, maybe it's not today, but in a year you can take the good, bad, and ugly of everything you learn, and you can create something better. Or maybe you failed and you realize, like, that's not for me. Like, I was
Yeah.
so on this track of, if and my by the way, so neither my mom ended up getting an AA later in life for psychology, which is great, but neither of my parents have a 4-year degree, and then both my brother and I are
Mhm.
lawyers. But there was this, like, sort of, get an education, you'll have a good career, you'll make money. And it was oh, you're the kids who get the awards, and we're telling our friends like you won another award at school, and so, but there wasn't sort of this like, if you fuck up, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because when my parents fucked up, it wasn't okay. And I'm not saying that I'm taking away from the pain that they felt, and they were good parents for what they had. I'm saying that you have to find a way to love yourself even when you fail, and you have to find a way to learn from those experiences. And I don't think we teach that. And if I had known that earlier on, I would potentially love myself more, or at a younger age, I would have said to myself, you're not stuck here. I felt very stuck. Like, you got to realize after law school, living in my parents' office, working in the mall, or sleeping on a friend's floor, or um, it's sort of, I had many years of feeling like, why did I do any of this, and where am I going? And then that the other thing that this relates to is your business can be your worth, your job can be your worth, but there's more to you than that. And
Yeah.
I'm starting to discover that one, I'm really blessed to have a job where my purpose is in the job and it is very much me. But also there's other parts to me. I am not only a lawyer, and I'm becoming a gardener, which if you would have told me like 10 years ago that I would be gardening, I would have been like, no, absolutely not. Like we just ate a salad last night from like lettuce varieties that I grew. Like,
That's amazing.
so
Love that.
it's, if you could be whatever you want, and I know I have a lot of lessons. My other one is like, you have to have one functioning thing, and then you can do the others. I sort of tried, and still try sometimes, even though I stop myself, to give 100% of myself to four things. Well, that's 400%. You don't have 400%. You only have 100%. So you have to do the thing that gives you survival, or do the thing that's your primary, and then we can layer on other things. If we're trying to do 100% of four or five different things at once, it's not going to work. And that's just the
Yeah.
reality of that. And that sounds common sense, but I know you all out there, where it's like, I do these five things and I want to do them all 100%. Well, sorry to tell you, honey, but that's 500%. You don't have 500%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's only 24 hours in the day, I keep telling myself, and you need to sleep more.
Yeah.
That's just the reality. Like,
Exactly.
all of us could probably sleep more. Oh, I love all that you shared, Michael. And I know that you have covered this in your other answers, but I would love if you would share with us, like, what's your why? Why still entrepreneurship? Why all of the things that you're very passionate about doing?
Yeah. One of them is that when I was young, my parents, didn't have stable work. And I don't know if that was mental, emotional, the economy. But, we also did, I say we, but, they did a variety of like multi-level marketing companies and things like that. So what I'm trying to tell you is that one of my whys is, I want to have a job where I enjoy the job, but I also have a stable income. And it has taken me years and years to get there. Like, I feel like I'm there now. I tried everything in my power to make myself not unemployable. Does that make sense? No. Yes,
Yeah.
unemployable or not. No, make myself employable. So that at any drop of the hat, if there's anything, there's, the economy falls, there's an apocalypse, like there's something that I can do, some way that I can be involved, right? So I have skillfully, tirelessly done that. In terms of like my business, and I'd say I have a brand, like I my why is it's seeing people as people and saying like, what do you want to do, and why are you not doing this, and let me help you do this. And it's okay to be you doing that thing. You don't have to be you doing that thing acting like someone else. And I want you to lean into who you are and do that thing. So my purpose is sometimes the structural components I mentioned, of saying, why are we doing this the way we're doing it? Why don't we do it another way? Sometimes it's bringing people to the table that have never been invited but should be the first people invited. And then sometimes it's sort of this selfish, like, I'm smiling because I see this woman doing the thing that she wants to do and make a living while she can also be herself. And that is such a beautiful thing. It sounds very simple, like it should just be, but we have to fight for those things every day.
Yeah. I remember a long time ago when you and I were talking, when at some point in the Rational Unicorn times, you were like, I want to be the law office that gets to work with drag queens and people making their own music and people starting,
Yes.
their own like food carts. And I just really, I mean, I really loved that about you because you had said to me, I would never get to do this in like a corporate office environment. And that's, like being able to work with the people that truly need, help with legal things, and also to be able to do the things because they wouldn't be served anywhere else, and they wouldn't be served like fairly anywhere else, which I
Yeah,
loved.
I appreciate that. There's a time and a place for litigation. There's a time and place for what we call ivory tower law. But I think a lot of service providers historically have talked down to people, and instead of talking with them, they've talked at them. And
Mhm.
so this idea of having a relationship with your attorney or having a relationship with your bookkeeper or your marketing expert, that yes, I am a professional and you are my client, but we're in this together. I'm here for you. And there's a cheerleading component, there's an educational component, there's a um, how are you doing? I love seeing your progress. Do you need anything? I'm going to be a resource for you. I'm going to provide resources for you. So as you know, I'm really into building community. I mean, that is literally
Mhm.
all we have at the end of the day. Like, even at the beginning of hunter and gatherer times or whatever, it comes down to your given and chosen family. And why not why not look for possibility and collaboration, and why not build community? Why always have scarcity mentality or competition mentality, or why always be angry? And so we are sort of falling into this, and it's not a naive, like, oh, kumbaya, we have no problems. And there are people like that like, I feel like they're always on vacation, or they're in this like Neverland Peter Pan stage, and I'm like, are you a trust fund baby? Like, how are you just partying all day?
Mhm.
But but
Mhm.
but the what I'm getting at is that it is possible to be a good professional service provider and have a heart. It is possible to, you know, have care about people but have boundaries. It's possible to um, be a good environmental steward. And I often feel like we either tell ourselves that we're not enough, or we don't do things because we're afraid that if we do them, they're going to be wrong. It's really hard right now. I mean, it sounds it's hard for a lot of groups that are being discriminated against. Especially the trans community and immigrants, but for everyone being Black in America. But this idea, this idea that people go through life either not doing what they want to do, or go through life being angry all day and night, or go through life thinking everybody is in competition with them. To me, all of that seems exhausting and not forward moving.
Mhm.
And so when I see things that I want to break those apart and be like, why are we spending time going in circles? Or why are we doing it this way? You've indicated to me that it's not working, but now we're signing on to do the same thing again.
Yeah.
So I, I have to slow down. I have to be more patient. I have to have times where it's like, I don't have a staff of 20, and I am one person, but
Mhm.
I feel like if I don't contribute to society or grow community, I don't feel like myself. Like, I have days where I do really fucking boring work, like reading a 65-page commercial lease. I wouldn't wish it upon any of you. But the joy at the end of the day is that 65-page commercial lease is so that a single mother of two can open her own bakery after working for a shitty boss at a commercial bakery. She now owns her own bakery, and she can wake up whenever she wants to. She can market it however she wants to. She can franchise it. She can do whatever she wants because it's hers. And so there is a really beautiful thing about seeing business as a form of community building and a form of economic justice.
Love that.
I love that. That's incredible. Well, I think, Ashlyn, we are ready for the hot seat questions of the episode. And I always kick it off with the same question every time. And that is, what is the best or worst advice you've ever received in your career?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, I was told not to take the bar exam again, and I did. I was told not to name a law firm Rational Unicorn. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the best advice comes from people who they know me, or they know me well. I think the hard part right now is everyone has advice and everyone has opinions,
Yep.
and I'm someone who, like, I'm building my tough skin. Ashton, you mentioned, like, having the tough skin to run for politics. Like, I am extremely sensitive, and it cuts both ways because I will cry. I care about things. I care about what people think. So I think the worst advice also is potentially don't care as much. And then people tell me, like, you know, why don't you just do this, or why don't you have a law firm that isn't creative, or so I don't know if that makes sense. I think
It does, yeah.
It does.
I
You
like,
have to be yourself.
yeah, I like when people see that some of the things that I'm doing, they have intention, and that I know they're crazy, or I know that they're not perfect, but I don't care.
Yeah.
You're doing things
That's
to
the
create
magic of it.
change. Like, I think that is one of the things that I've always admired about you. And always when there's stuff to do together, that I will jump on it, because like what you had said earlier, that we go back into these patterns where we're doing the same thing. Like we have a lot of conversation about we want to change this, but then we sign on to do the same thing for another 4 years, or 6 years, or yeah, we go in loops a lot of the time. And I think, being able to dig your hands in and be like, okay, I do want to do something that is going to uplift, change, or at least try. Like, I mean, I think a lot of people would have given up. A lot of people would have given up after the 5 failed in California. The more, the fact that you just kept going for it and believing in it. There was a movie that came out a while ago that was like the guy who really wanted to be like a NASA astronaut. He was Hispanic. It came out like in Hispanic Heritage Month, where I think he tried for like 11 years, and then he finally got it. And it was just like, having that resilience, and being able to say, like, I really care and believe in this, to keep going is very,
Yeah,
very admirable.
I appreciate that. And also, when you take 9 bar exams, you actually know the law better. So
I was gonna say, if anybody knows the law, it's gonna be you.
but
Studied
I
that
also,
hard.
I also wanted to add that it's about the heights you reach as well. Like, I was told, don't run for Congress, run for city council, and
Yeah.
I could have entered the city council race after I lost my primary, because I lost my primary May 21st, and you could still file to run for city council until August 31st. I didn't get into that race because, one is that everybody else was already running for like a year and a half, and also there were like 25 to 30 people who were running in my district already, and but I think, what I'm going to say is, like, be the person, or like, yes, think about every day and think about your resources and think about, you have to survive, but you run for the position that you want. You make the business you want to see. Like, all the people who we see who are successful, like, they they didn't they didn't listen to, like, oh, like, I'm thinking about, like, Jenny Nugent of the sports bra, like, you know
Mm-hmm.
now it seems like, oh my god, well, why wasn't there a lady sports bra prior, or sports bra. I can't
Mm-hmm.
talk.
I knew what you meant.
And
It's okay.
and it could have been like, oh, that's a cute idea, but in her
Yeah.
mind,
Yeah.
now she's franchising, and it's like, someone probably said, oh yeah, Jenny, that's a cute idea. And so
Mm-hmm.
my point in this is, like, yes, you have to care what other people think, and yes, you ask the people who matter. Like, I had a hearing, listening session before I ran for Congress or filed, with, like, people who I knew and trusted, to just see, like, is this a good idea? Like, first I talked to my
Mm-hmm.
husband and my family, and then I talked to, like, a larger
Right.
group. But you have to actually believe in the thing that you want to do, and so I think it's really
Yeah.
hard. I think that there will be people every day who try to tell you that, you shouldn't be doing the thing. You
Mm-hmm.
should stop it where you're at. You can't get any larger. Um, there's too much competition. Like, some of these things are true. I'm not saying, like, there's times where, like, we have a product and it doesn't really meet the market. Okay. What I'm telling you is, if you believe and you have the plan and you've done the work and you get excited from this thing, then fuck everybody. And, I was told we could cuss on this podcast, so I am.
Yes.
And
Yes.
You
there's that,
can.
and there's that expression that's like, the greatest revenge is success. Like,
It's true.
I'm not gonna do this just for you. I'm gonna do this so that I have a better life and I can be me doing the thing I love. But really, at the end of the day, when I'm successful and I'm looking at you, and you're still at the same job that you absolutely hate, and I have a career that I love, you know,
Yeah.
I took a risk, or I took a leap, and it actually paid off. So take those words and those criticisms and let them be real, but, um, know that there are people who don't want you to succeed. Know that there are people who sometimes care about you, so say those things. They're best intentioned. Even those sometimes don't pan out,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a
I love
total pivot with my next question.
that.
So your first business was Rational Unicorn. You used a unicorn. Now we've got narwhal, and you've got your narwhal. Why those animals? Any specific reason?
Yeah, there's a couple reasons. So I got tired of the professional world being, it's a law firm called Johnson Johnson Johnson. Great. Or, Scales of Justice Law. No offense to people who name their firms those things, but, um, you know, why can't we be fun or kitschy, especially if we want to have clients who are fun?
Mm-hmm.
So there was that, and there was also me thinking a lot when I was starting my law firm about how I am an interesting combination of realism and dreaming, or optimism. And so we have to have logistics and research and homework. We have to look at real factors and budgets, but we're also dreaming. And so the idea with the Rational Unicorn was, if you're the unicorn that's rational, you're the unicorn that has done your homework. So you're the unicorn that is far ahead or far above. And the idea was to not only talk about me being the rational unicorn, it was, I'm going to help clients who have these dreams be better logistically at doing their things to be more rational. And then that's going to help them accelerate and move forward, or frolic, or whatever rational unicorn, thing. And so Narwhal, I created, Narwhal in 2023, and it actually wasn't a law firm. It was a nonprofit consulting company, and I had two business partners who I still talk to. Um, I created it in 2023 while I still had Rational Unicorn, And so there was this sort of like, oh, we have the unicorn, we have the narwhal, two kind of mystical, even though narwhals are real. And then it sort of took a variety of iterations, and then since maybe past 6 months. So we went from nonprofit consulting, not a law firm, to nonprofit law only, to for-profit and nonprofit law. So our last iteration and what we're doing now is we're law and we're business strategy. And I don't know, I like the idea of being creative. I like puns. I like people leaning into who they are. I like colorful, vibrant logos. Life's too short, right? Like maybe if that's you, like if I was the guy. I mean, I'm wearing casual clothes today because I did have client meetings, but the clients I met with don't really care. I have meetings where I dress up based on the client, or if I have to do something more formal. But this sort of idea that, oh, because I'm a lawyer, I have to have a name like this. I have to wear a suit and tie every day. Um, if you're shitty at what you do, potentially you can't be kitschy or funny because it would fall apart. If you're good at what you do, regardless of what it is, like baking, law, anything, then you have the luxury of being fun or kitschy, right? And so I can confidently say that I think I'm a good lawyer and that I work extremely hard, and that affords me the ability to not only be myself, but to have humor, to have sass, to create a community that's fun. And I enjoy it. I enjoy the marketing part. A lot of lawyers potentially may not like that, and so that's part of it. Or they're worried that the biggest worry was, oh well, certain people might not like that name, or certain people might not like the colors, or and so my thought to that now is, well, those aren't people for me, and not every client is a client for you. And I think that for those people that are listening, yes, you may be thinking, well, if I have a watered down version of myself and it's very general, I'll get every kind of client and I'll do really well. Well, great, but you won't feel like yourself. Well, what I'm going to tell you is if you lean into yourself and your brand speaks to who you are, then you'll actually get the clients that you want, and then those clients will end up being extremely loyal and will give you referrals, and it will create a community. And so if you're being told do the boring thing or the thing that's been historically done, if that fits for you, if you actually like that, sure, go for it. Like if you love wearing suits every day and you love being that, whatever profession, buttoned up, whatever, great. I'm not saying don't do that. But if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper that's in a band and has tattoos and has fun hair, like that's who you are. So that's what should be representative in what you do. Rock and roll bookkeeping. I don't know. I just made that up. Like we have to be who we are. We only have one life. Like work cannot be so important that every single day I have to play somebody else to please other people. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. I love that answer so much. Ashlyn and I talk about this all the time of like, if somebody's going to be mad because I have tattoos and I let them show, or because Ashlyn dyes her hair, or because we swear. Yeah. Like, I don't want to work with those people. They're not my kind of people. Like, I want to work with the kind of people who get me and I get them, and we jive really well together. And we actually recently interviewed Megan Ekman, and one of the things she said was find your weirdos. And I've been really taking that to heart. Like, I just feel like you said, life is short. We only get one life in theory. And why not, use it to do things that we love to do and work with people we love to work with, instead of just being stuffy and doing things the way they've always been done and being really unfulfilled in life. And I think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs start their own businesses, because we don't quite fit into that mold of how things were done before. And we want to make a difference in a different way and be ourselves.
Yeah, Megan's right. I actually know Megan. She's great. Yeah, I mean, the thing is if you think about work like building a community, and some people may not want to do that, like they may be like, this is my work self, this is my home self. I don't have the energy for
Yeah.
that. Like I literally
Yeah.
am who I am in every. I mean, sure, there's filters and there's different things I wear, or there, but like I am me, and this is my personality, like in every
Yeah.
sort of context. So this idea of having like I have to do this or be this way in this environment. The other thing that it makes me think about is that the person doesn't value your work. They're thinking about whatever thing about you that they don't like. And it makes me think of people who used to say, they probably still do, oh, we have a queer waiter. Like if it's like cool, like yeah, if it's not discriminatory, like, oh yeah, they're queer and cute. Okay, we love it. But the people who are like, oh, I can't have a queer waiter, it's like, what, they're gonna gay up your food? Like I don't understand. Like there's this sort of like because Ashlyn has her hair dyed, she's gonna make you dye your hair. Like that's not a service that she's offering for your branding and marketing. Like the person who cares about you and not the actual marketing or whatever service you're
Mhm.
providing and how good you are. That's another reason not to work with them, because they're literally picking something out about you. Now, granted, we can say what kind of clients we want to have. I've actually been surprised. I mean, I've had some clients who are, Christian conservatives who I never thought would become a client, or I've had clients who, um, they're worried that I'm going to be too formal. Like they've never worked with a lawyer, and a lot of people haven't,
Mhm.
and lawyers often give people heartache, but also historically, lawyers were involved with redlining, with bankruptcy, with taking
Mhm.
kids away. I mean, lawyers are often part of sort of systematic racism and things like that. But there's
Yeah.
also lawyers who are good. But I've had people who have said to me like, I thought you were going to be an asshole, and um, why are you so nice? And so I guess what I'm trying to get at with that is like, people have preconceived notions for us. We have that, then we have what people think about how we look. Um, I think that if everyone in this world could just lean into who they were, and they didn't have to have multiple personalities. And I know it's hard if you're trans and you live in a transphobic community, or at your work you're not out yet. I get all that, but I'm saying like, if you have the ability to be yourself, and you feel compelled to do that, and I know that it's scary, I'm going to tell you that that act of being yourself that is brave is probably the most important business thing that you can do. We can throw away all the other business components, all the other, P&L statements and SWOT
Mhm.
analysis and all these sort of fancy things, right? You being yourself, doing what you want to do, is like the best and most impactful thing you can do for business.
Mhm.
I will say it for the people in the back. I will say it louder. I will repeat it, be yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's so important too, because, like in times of stress, in times of overwhelm, the person who you are the most is going to come out. So that mask is going to drop. Like, and it's just easier if you come out as yourself, basically.
Yeah. And know that, you don't have to be perfect. None of us are. And
Yeah.
I've also discovered, you asked about lessons. Again, I know I'm a talker, but one of the lessons that you learn when you're an adult and you're in business, or when you get to the stage in your career that I'm at, is like, nobody's figured it out. Like the people who I admire, like they don't even know what the fuck they're doing. Like I've talked to people who give speeches around the country, and like they appear nervous. They're like, I'm not prepared to give my speech today. And I'm like, you're a world renowned speaker and you're telling me that? Like we have this idea that everyone's ready, everyone's perfect. We're the only ones who have imposter syndrome. We're the only ones who aren't good enough. And the reality is, it's like we're all in this together, and nobody knows what the hell they're doing. And you do your best,
Yeah.
and put one foot in front of the other, and I've been saying to people lately, when people say like, how are you doing, or what are you up to, I say, I'm working hard, and I'm trying to be a decent person. And that's all you can do.
Mhm.
And we need to throw out a bunch of the other things.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. And give people grace because, yeah, they are working as hard as they can and doing the best that they can do.
Somebody told me that a long time ago in a completely different context. It was for relationships with family and things like that. But the thing they told me that stuck with me was people, I genuinely choose to believe that most people are doing the best they can do. And that might not be good enough for the situation that you're in. It might not be, it might not jive with you, but I think most people are genuinely doing the best they can do under the circumstances in their life. And I'm like, it's a really good reminder because it's kind of put it in perspective for me and helped me give some people more grace. And it also gave myself permission to give myself grace too.
Mm-hmm.
That's 100% true for everything except for lately, people voting against their own interest is something that I'm trying to make sense of. But definitely, 9 times out of 10, that is definitely true.
Yeah. I honestly think half the time it's the way that some of the ballot measures and shit are written is meant to confuse people. Like we get in arguments with my in-laws a lot. Be like, that doesn't actually mean what you think it means. No. You've got to read deeper, into it.
But also, if I have a law degree and I don't understand the ballot proposition, how does anybody else?
Right? How is anybody else? Yeah, the general person going to understand it. Yeah.
My husband and I have a habit of anytime we get a ballot for anything, we'll go through it together and I'll be like, okay, and we'll get the voters pamphlet and one of us will do like the reading and then the other person will be like, okay, what does that mean? And then like researching it a little bit more online so that we know that we understand it fully because it's not straightforward for literally anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be. Should be. Well, I'm going to take this in a completely different direction because that's what we like to do in the section. We like to ask just the most random questions. Sure. This one, we could definitely turn into a different podcast, but I definitely want to get your thoughts on this. So you work with a lot of nonprofits, and that industry is being hit really hard this year, obviously, for many reasons, but the majority of the reasons coming from all the changes that are happening in the administration right now and the lack of funding. So I guess in your opinion, what do you think nonprofits should do right now to survive? I know a lot of them are really struggling, and just off the top of your head, like what kind of conversations are you having with them right now?
Yeah. So thank you for asking that. And yeah, I feel really lucky to work with not just small businesses, but a lot of community organizations, nonprofits, mutual aid groups, neighborhood associations. A lot of them don't have funding if they lose their one funding source, or 80% of their funding's cut. They don't have a development plan. And so even if you decided tomorrow to start fundraising or to write grants, it's not like money just falls out of the sky. You have to be in those systems. You have to wait for those applications to go through. You have to plan fundraisers. So a couple things. One is, I want us to create an environment where we can talk about not doing well, and we can be, and this is just both as a person, like burnout, like these are people doing work on the street, helping people every day. Like I want to create an environment where they can talk about how they feel and what they need. But also we have organizations that are hanging by a thread, and we often, as a city, we want everyone to be open, and we want retail, and we want people to be out servicing people. Like it's this constant like, can you just do the thing and we expect you to be there? But a lot of these organizations, they have city and county contracts for crucial social services. And if they lose their funding or if they collapse, these are services that the city and county either no longer do or no longer fund, or both. And if they wanted to take on, even if the city had money, the infrastructure is not there. And so that is a big problem that I'm trying to highlight, is that we need to stop having these surface level conversations before it's too late. We have to actually talk about what has to happen for these organizations. So there's that piece. There's a lot of stuff here. So yeah, we could do another podcast. But the other part of
Wow.
this, the other part of this is that we have this expectation of nonprofits that nonprofits, the people who are working at them, they're really good at doing the thing or the service, but maybe they don't have business experience, and maybe they don't have nonprofit compliance experience, or maybe they don't have programmatic growth or capacity experience. So we're giving millions of dollars to organizations who have met their value proposition. They do amazing work, but we're so focused on the startup and then funding the growth or the value proposition that we don't ask, does this person or this board or the staff know how to go from 2 staff members to 20 staff members? Do they know how to grow out their program? Do they have the right insurance? Do they have bylaws that are current? So we're sort of making this mistake that we believe that organizations have the knowledge or capacity. And I'm not saying they're not smart. I'm saying that nonprofit law and compliance is its own thing, and surviving a business, a nonprofit's a business just like any other, and you have to run it like a business. And so if you don't have people at the nonprofit who have business skills and or don't know nonprofit rules, we have a mess on our hands. So there's that. The other thing is that there are a lot of nonprofits that we need to help resource from each other and collaborate and do community partnerships. Now, I have talked people into starting nonprofits. I've formed hundreds myself. I've also talked people out of it. Maybe what you're trying to form is not a nonprofit. Maybe you should form an LLC that has a give back program to a nonprofit you love. We do not need tons and tons more nonprofit organizations unless you clearly know what you're doing or you're meeting a need, just like a business in the market. You'd say, is there a need for this product or service? So we have an overwhelming variety of new things that are not new things, or things that are duplicative. And potentially nonprofits should talk to each other, and so not only be in an environment of vulnerability and say I need help, but maybe we should be doing more co or cross fundraising. Maybe we should be sharing event space. Maybe I do 4 programs, you do 4 programs. Well, there's one program we do in common. Let's combine them and do them together. Or why don't you do this program that's eating all of our funds for a couple years so that we can stabilize and do these other things well? We're going to give you that program. So we're not thinking creatively and collaboratively. We're not having tough conversations. And so
Yeah.
Ashley knows about this. So I get frustrated at this, and I'm not a research scientist. I don't have like a team of researchers, but I wanted the community to talk about community infrastructure. I wanted the community to talk about, what do we do when the helpers need help? And in the pandemic, we immediately lost places that were staples of Portland. They would just come and go. And we weren't ready. I mean, there wasn't a pandemic before that since 1918. Well, now, I mean, we know what's going on, and it's not a pandemic. I mean, it's a horrible administration and an uncertain time of hate and ignorance, but we have the ability to do something special. We have the ability to come together as a city and have for-profit, nonprofit, and the public come together and be like, what is the need here, and what are we trying to fix? And let's not have a scarcity mentality, and let's collaborate. And so in order for that to happen, we have to have facts and figures, and we have to have the vulnerable answers. And so I put together this community infrastructure study that Ashland's helped me with designing and pushing out. The idea is that organizations in the Portland metro area will complete the study, and the study asks questions like, if you were audited tomorrow, would you be ready? Or do you think that you're going to survive past this year, or will you go under in a couple years? That it may sound dramatic, but if you do work like I do, where I'm talking to organizations about dissolving, and I have actively been dissolving organizations. Or if you saw some organizations like I do that are mainstays of Portland, and you found out that under the veil, or whatever you want to call it, under the hood, an organization who you thought was doing well and was stable was about to close, then you would also sort of ask, well, how do we figure this out? And so what I want to do with this is to take the information that we get and to report out some tangible numbers. If we find out a percentage of people need this one thing, we can then target with service providers to go and help those organizations with that thing. If we find out that two organizations have a program, maybe they don't know about each other, we can connect the two. If we find that an organization is not going to survive in a couple years, but they're doing a crucial social service, maybe we have an on-ramp of 2 years where we can plan for that service to disappear from them, and then someone else can take it on. So if we don't do this sort of homework and have this real vulnerability or look at these systems, all of these organizations will just collapse, and then we'll, as a public, I don't have an answer what happens if those organizations don't exist, or if the thing that they're doing regularly doesn't exist. I mean, the sad reality is that the city and county don't have the money or the infrastructure to take on that program.
Yeah. Especially with so many organizations that are doing like direct service for like the houseless population, immigrant and refugee communities. Like, the city doesn't have the capacity to take on that work, and it is scary.
It's really scary.
I've talked about it a little bit on this podcast. I had a client that closed at the end of last month. They were a social justice, social change nonprofit that did work nationally. And the way that they have survived the last few years is ARPA funds, and doing a lot of like projects that combined like municipal government and nonprofits and corporate, like just bringing the groups together. But they knew the writing was on the wall the minute that Trump got elected. And so for 8 months, they have been doing like a really intentional wind down process. They wish they had longer. They wish they had known longer, but they spent a lot of time like publicly sharing all the resources that they developed in their 20 years of existence, and like training champions to take on the work after the fact. And it was scary. I mean, when I first found out about it in like November, I was like shocked, because they, to me, like seemed like they had their shit together. I'd been working with them for 2.5 years, but I think the scary thing is there's many other organizations that they don't have that runway. They're not going to have that time.
And for those that don't know, ARPA funds, or ARPA, it's American Rescue Plan Act. So in 2021, as a pandemic related thing, organizations got funding from the federal government that then went through state governments and city and county governments. The one thing that I just wanted to add to this was we have this issue as well where all of our sort of all of our focus is on startups, right? Like form, startup. And I love startups. But what about taking some of those resources and saying, well, what about sustainability and survival and thriving? Or, hey, guess what? You started up. It's your second year. We really want you to make it to 10. Why don't we have this conversation? So our city is a little bit too startup, and I'm not saying, again, love startups. I've been judging pitch competitions. I mentor startups, but I'm saying we need to focus not just on the startup or the forming. We have to focus on how is this organization surviving and thriving. And if we don't do that, then we have these problems, and we're throwing away resources, and people are losing jobs, and we're not being good stewards of public funds. And then the other thing is that a lot of so the SBA, the Small Business Act, or Small Business Administration, that was created by the Small Business Act, it created SBDCs, small business development centers. Well, that, and then all these other business ecosystem support systems that we know, MISO, Accelerate, Prosper, Business Livelihood, Livelihood Northwest, Business
Livelihood Northwest.
they are often almost always 100% for-profit businesses. And so the problem with that is, okay, well, that's great, but where do the mutual aid and the nonprofits go to? Some of them know about Nonprofit Association of Oregon. Some of them know about People's Nonprofit Accelerator, which is having some problems with funding right now. But the ecosystem of business support does not support nonprofits and community organizations nearly in the same way. And yet, our public dollars in millions and billions are going to those nonprofits. And these are people who are real and work hard and they're tired and they're burnt out. And basically they need to have as much support as needed, both in training and mental health and leadership and nonprofit compliance. So we're making a big mistake by not only focusing mostly on startup stuff, but also on focusing most of our resources on for-profit organizations and not on nonprofit organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very unequal space. Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, and that's people need it after the startup period. So
yeah, especially when you look at the statistics of how many businesses and like nonprofits like close after the first year. It's clearly there's a further downstream problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a whole different pivot again with this next question. So you've set up your business to not be the same as other law offices. And I'm speaking specifically to, I know when I first started learning about Rational Unicorn and Narwhal, instead of charging insane hourly legal fees, you prefer like project-based pricing so that people can predict, what it's going to cost to have you review that 65-page, lease agreement or, set up your business and things like that. So I'm curious, like, why was that really important for you personally? And then what advice do you possibly have for business owners who are thinking of doing business in like what is not considered like a traditional way?
Sure. No, I appreciate you asking that. So there's a couple things. One is the historic model for legal services is to either take a really large retainer, hey, I can work with you if you give me $5,000 and then it'll go in my trust fund and then we'll eat away at that money and I'll keep billing against the trust until you run out of money. And if you run out of money, then I'll say, hey, we need more money in the trust fund. Well, there's that. There's also, let me bill you for not just the project. Let me bill you every time you ask an email or every time you call. So basically, you could run out of money based on emails or calls before your project's complete, or the billing hourly could end up being more than what you thought it would be because you had no idea. And so you ate through your retainer. So I didn't like any of those. I also don't like doing billable hours because I would have to track every single 15 minutes or every single half an hour or hour. So the question is, well, how do you have a moral, ethical, accessible model and also make money and not be walked all over and not give away the sink or whatever they say, so the answer is that first of all, you have to follow the rules. So like I still have to follow professional ethical rules and know what is possible. So you could have the craziest idea and then it could be that it doesn't follow the professional or ethical rules or your licensure doesn't allow for it. So I realized that if I was going to work with small business owners who some of which have kids, some of which have medical expenses, rent, mortgage, build out for their new space, whatever it is, it's cost and cost and cost. They need me as a lawyer, but if I take thousands and thousands of dollars up front and I hold it as a retainer, that's money that they need for other things, right? For inventory, for marketing, for whatever. And so it didn't make sense for me to do that. So part of why I like to do this is so that you know what you're getting. So I talk to you, we figure out what you need, and then I'm going to give you quotes back and I'm going to say, hey, it sounds like you need a LLC formation for you and your partner, and so you have a partnership operating agreement as well. Sounds like you need trademarking, and sounds like you need a client services agreement. Here is what each of these will cost, and the contracts will include up to an hour of real-time editing, and you can email me or set an appointment if it's related to this thing. And you don't get billed multiple bills after that. So it allows business owners to budget, or nonprofits to budget. It allows people to have clarity. So you know if you can afford that thing. And I know what I'm doing. I'm doing your project. So you pay, and then I go, hey, you paid this amount I quoted you? Great, I'm doing your project now. I don't like the model that I talked about, the historic model. It reinforces or reiterates the idea that a lawyer is an ivory tower professional, or that you can't get to me unless you pay this massive premium. And so I didn't like that. And so, you know, I had seen other models that were similar. So I worked at a law firm for about a year, an intellectual property law firm downtown, before I passed the bar and before I worked at BPA. And they did flat fee billing, but they did it differently, a little bit different than what I did. And they primarily did it for IP, because I do other things besides IP. So I sort of, it made me think about, well, can we do flat fee billing for all of these things? Now, sometimes we learned that the flat fee billing some of them have set costs, some of them have a range. So if you are doing a partnership agreement and it's extremely easy, it's just you and your friend, okay, maybe it's one cost, but maybe someone else has 12 different partners and they're all around the United States and they need some consulting, and so we can have flat fee projects. We can also have projects that have flat fees, but they're in ranges that we can give a flat fee based on that particular client scenario. We also learn that if we limit, your hour of your contract editing doesn't roll over. You have a month after the contract's delivered to use it. And, if this conversation we're having is not related to the project that we're working on, we will ask you to open another project. So I think that you can do all the things that you want to do, and you can have creative billing, as long as you have very clear communication of what you're doing and you communicate it well, you're following professional responsibility rules, and you have boundaries and you have exceptions. So this is the rule, but if you go over, here's the extra fee, or this is the rule, but it expires on this date. Now, if you just have this free for all, you have issues. Now, I get in trouble with my team because I do many pro bono things. I do many low bono things. I do many, you paid for a project that was a small project, now I'm helping you for 5 months. And so I am getting better at, I'm not going to stop, because that's one of the things I enjoy about being a lawyer, is I have the ability to help people, and I have the ability to decide, this organization needs me. Okay, that's what they can pay. We'll figure it out. But I also have bills to pay. I have, not just my team, but I have a mortgage. I have $400,000 in student loans. I have, licensure fees, continuing legal education fees, malpractice insurance fees. So I have to balance this really hard walk of, how do I pay my bills, make money or some sort of profit, and then also be a very good community member who's offering services that people can afford. And sometimes that's a very difficult formula or integration to figure out. So what I would encourage folks to do is to play the game of why not, or could I do this? So take a historic type of billing for your business, and what do you not like about it? Or what would you change? Or what if it could be different? And actually do an exercise where you think about that. Could I bill this other way. Why not? Because 25 other people bill that way, or I was told that that's what they've been doing for 60 years. Like, there are a lot of things in life, as you learn as an adult, that are made up constructs that actually you could do something different. It would still work, the world would survive, and both parties would go off happy. And so I think you have to have the time to do that. I also think that asking people in your community or your current clients, would you sign up for something like this? Or would you like
Yeah.
to be billed this way? I also have clients who have a couple different options. Sometimes they work on retainer, sometimes they work hourly, depending on the project. Sometimes they have both. You can have a sort of multifaceted billing. It's hard asking for money. It's also hard deciding what services to offer. It's also hard costing services, and it's hard figuring out what your overhead should be. If you're a new business owner, after a few months, one of the things that I really like to tell people is to figure out what your burn rate is, and what do I need to make to survive, to actually pay my bills? How much am I spending every
Right.
month? And when would I actually get to a profit? And okay, I see that I would have made a profit if this money didn't go out. Did that money have to go out? Or if I would
Right.
have added $300 to these four people who I should have billed at $300 more, I would have made $900 more that month. Okay, well,
Yeah.
that tells me that, based on looking at that the next time I have a client who is similar to those three clients, I'm going to now find a new way to bill so that I get $900 instead of $600, and or $600 instead of $300. So you're not. This is the hard part about business. Business is a giant experiment. It's adaptable and pliable, and you try something and it works, or it doesn't work, or you try something and then you change it a little bit. I want folks to know that, like, it's not perfect. Like, when we start out, we could offer all the services. Then we decide we're offering 5. Then a year later, we're like, oh, I
Yeah.
want to do these 5. Or I'm billing this way, then I'm billing that way. So I encourage you to not have the failure to launch, like make a decision, but then also calendar. I'm going to every month look and see, or every couple months look and see, is this going well or is this going right? For example, if you might realize you're a big money maker. Like, I didn't think that my clients would want that one service. It turns out that 5 people wanted that one service. Okay, well, that's your moneymaker, so advertise that larger on your website, and maybe you can charge more for that. Or maybe you don't charge more, but you advertise it, and it's what brings people in, because that's the thing that they signed up for that got them to sign up for 5 other things. So if we're not
Right.
actively reviewing the experiments that we're doing in our business, then that's where things don't work out. So
Yeah.
with the fee schedule or whatever else, ask why or why not, and if they follow the rules and the law, try it. Like, because your answer likely is that people just did the same thing that everybody else did, and the thing that you're doing and your creative way to bill people, it could be incredibly refreshing to clients. It could make your life easier.
A lot.
It's really great. Thank you for that. Well, we are getting to our very last question. And then we will kick it back to you to see if there's anything else you want to make sure we cover. But our very last question is a fun one. We are in the process of making a playlist for this season. And so we were asking all of our guests at the end, what song or album is on repeat right now?
Oh, geez, that's hard.
We've got some really good answers.
I
Really large variety.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love music, and I listen to all kinds of music depending on my mood or how I want to feel. So I mean, I'll tell you, I have this like, I mean, it sounds like weird to say this, but I have this like obsession with Benson Boone, like the rest of America, where I'm like, like, where did you come from, and how do you have this how do you have this confidence, and you're like wearing a Freddie Mercury outfit, and then you're doing a flip, and then you're blowing a kiss, and then like so I sort of I think he's a really good singer, but I'm also just fascinated by this like I don't give a fuck, I'm gonna do whatever. It's really refreshing for me. So I would say we've been listening to a lot of Benson Boone. I don't know. God, I love all kinds of music. It's so hard. Oh, I love Lady Gaga. I mean,
Classic.
what kind of
Great.
queer attorney would I be if I didn't mention Lady Gaga? You know? The Mayhem album is just amazing. So I've been listening to that a bunch.
Awesome. Well, Michael, I really appreciate that you came on. Our favorite thing to do is invite people back to like the next season. So we will definitely have you back for season 3. And I mean, I feel like you gave us so many different things that we can dive deeper into for season 3.
Absolutely,
so we would love to have you back for that. But yeah, any last things that you wanted to share with the audience? Like where can we'll put everything in the show notes where they can find you and all of that. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story. And very inspirational how many leaps you've gone through in your formation of where you're at now.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed talking with both of you. Yeah, I mean, if people want to get a hold of me, I'm on all the socials and LinkedIn and stuff like that. But so my law firm now is Narwhal Law and Business Strategy, and we are helping nonprofits and for-profits. Most of our clients, you don't have to be, but a lot of our clients do social impact work. So whether that's a for-profit company that is caring about the environment or health, or whether that's a nonprofit organization, you can contact us. We also, this sort of Law Plus that we're doing now is we really see a need for folks to not only have legal services, but how are you implementing the contracts that we just wrote for you? Or how are you communicating to your team about the changes? Or you're changing your whole structure. Well, we need to talk about, hiring and things like that. So this idea of having either a consulting company with general counsel or a law firm that has consulting, whatever way you want to look at it, I think is a really important newish model that we're trying to create. And I'm curious to see where it goes. We have some really exciting things in the works with trying to build more community with service providers. You'll hear more about that, in the months that follow. And then I just want to say to anybody listening, if you're an entrepreneur who's already open, keep going. If you haven't opened yet, good luck. We care about you. We see you. If you're a nonprofit organization or someone who works for one, we know you're burnt out and tired, and we appreciate you continually getting up in the morning and doing things for our loved ones and our neighbors.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you, everybody who hopped on and listened today. We hope you appreciate the episode. As always, you can DM us on Instagram or send us an email to aloha@taketheleap-today.com. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.